Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are staring down a paradox. I mean, I've got a stack of sources here that is, frankly, a little intimidating.
It's quite a mix.
It really is. We have encyclopedias on evolutionary biology. We've got MRI studies on the human brain. We have philosophy papers from, the 1970s?
And, of course, the autopsy of a multi-billion-dollar financial fraud.
Right. It's an eclectic mix, for sure. But they all seem to circle around one central question.
They do.
And that question is, why do we help? Because, we live in a world that we're always told is defined by Darwinism.
Survival of the fittest.
Survival of the fittest, red in tooth and claw, the winner takes all those cliches.
That's the popular conception, yes.
So if life is just this cage match where the only goal is to survive and reproduce, why on earth does self-sacrifice exist at all?
It's a fundamental puzzle.
Why would a vampire bat vomit blood into a friend's mouth?
Yeah.
Or a soldier jump on a grenade? And then, in the modern world, why do we sometimes try so hard to help only to find out we've made everything exponentially worse?
That is the arc we're tracing today. We are going from the microscopic, literally the gene, all the way up to the macroscopic, global economic systems, like, say, universal basic income.
And the mission here, I think, is really to unpack the machinery of altruism. Because what I found in the reading is that helping isn't just this warm, fuzzy feeling.
Not at all.
It's a biological strategy, it's a mathematical equation, and sometimes it can be a really dangerous trap.
It is. And to understand the trap, you absolutely have to understand the origins. We have to start in the mud.
Or, I suppose, in the caves in this case.
Yeah, right, in the caves.
Let's start with the bats, because this example from the evolutionary biology sources, it really set the stage for me. It's a little gross, I'll admit, but it's just fascinating.
It's the classic textbook case of biological altruism. We're talking about vampire bats in Central and South America.
Okay.
Now, these creatures, their metabolism runs incredibly hot. They fly out at night to find blood, usually from cattle or horses, but it's a difficult hunt.
It's not a guarantee.
Not at all. Young bats especially, they fail to find food about 30% of the time.
And the stakes are life and death, right? This isn't just, I'm skipping dinner.
No, not even close. If a vampire bat goes 60 hours without feeding, that's just 2.5 days, they starve to death.
Wow.
They lose body heat, they can't fly, and they die. It is a razor-thin margin of survival.
So here is the scene. It's dawn. The bats come back to the roost. Some of them are full. Their bellies are distended with blood. Others are empty and are basically on the clock. They're starving.
And then the magic happens, as you said. The full bat crawls over to the empty, starving bat.
And just regurgitates fresh blood into its mouth.
Exactly. And let's be really clear about what this means in evolutionary terms. That donor bat is giving up calories. It's giving up energy.
It's hurting itself.
It's luring its own fitness, its own chances of surviving the next night to raise the fitness of the recipient. In a purely selfish Darwinian world, that donor bat should be outcompeted by a greedy bat who just keeps all the blood for itself.
Right. The greedy bat stays fat and happy, it lives longer, has more babies.
And the generous bat risks starvation. So over 1,000 years, that generous gene should just die out. But it hasn't.
And that is the puzzle. This is the thing that kept Charles Darwin himself awake at night.
It really did. He literally couldn't explain it in his first editions. He worried it might break his entire theory of natural selection.
So how do we solve it? Because it's not just bats. We see this everywhere. You mentioned the vervet monkeys screaming at leopards.
The alarm calls.
Yeah.
That's another perfect example. A monkey sees a leopard. The safest thing for that individual monkey to do is shut up and hide.
Of course.
But the monkey screams. That warns the whole troop, but it attracts the leopard's attention directly to the screamer. That monkey is now statistically more likely to get eaten.
And then you have the ants, the sterile workers who never have babies. They just work for the queen their whole lives.
Complete reproductive suicide. There's no personal gain at all.
So enter the 1960s and a biologist named W.D. Hamilton. He changes the camera angle, doesn't he?
He does. Before Hamilton, we look at evolution from the perspective of the individual animal, the wolf, the bat, the human. Hamilton, and then later Richard Dawkins, came along and said, no, zoom in.
Further in.
The individual is just a vehicle. The real player in this game is the gene.
The gene's eye view.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Think of your body as a kind of survival machine that was built by your genes for the purpose of transporting them into the future.
Okay.
So from a gene's perspective, it doesn't really matter if you die, as long as copies of me, the gene, survive and get passed on.
This is where the math comes in, Hamilton's rule. I have to admit, I stared at this formula for a while. RBC.
It looks like high school algebra, but it's actually a kind of moral code written in math.
So break it down for us.
Okay. C is the cost to the giver.
Mm.
How much risk are you taking on? B is the benefit to the receiver. How many more offspring will they have because you help them?
And R is the magic number.
R is the magic number. It's
Right.
relatedness. The probability that the receiver shares the exact same gene as you. For a parent and a child, R is 0.5 or 50%,
And for full siblings?
also 0.5. For a first cousin, it drops all the way down to 0.125 or 12.5%.
Okay, so let's game this out. Let's say I run into a burning building to save my brother.
Okay, so let's say the cost to you is death. That's a cost of 1. You can't get higher than that. If you save one brother, the benefit is 1, his life. But R is 0.5. So 0.5 times 1 is 0.5.
Which is less than the cost of one.
So the math says,
Yeah.
don't do it. From the gene's perspective, it's a bad trade.
That is cold. Okay, what if I save 3 brothers?
Now the math changes. 3 brothers means the benefit side is 3 times 0.5.
That's 1.5.
And since 1.5 is greater than the cost of 1, the gene in you is screaming, go, jump in the fire.
So the gene is totally willing to sacrifice the body it's currently living in as long as it saves enough copies of itself that are living in other bodies.
That's it. You've got it. There's that famous quote, I think it's a biologist, J.B.S. Haldane.
Yes. I was just thinking of that.
He said, I would lay down my life for 2 brothers or 8 cousins. He was joking, but he was being mathematically precise.
And this explains the ants, right? Their genetics are weirdly identical or something like that.
Yes, Hymenoptera genetics are fascinating. Sisters in an ant colony, they actually share 75% of their genes with each other.
75%.
75, which is actually more than they would share with their own offspring, which would only be 50%.
So for an ant, it's literally more genetically profitable to help the queen raise more sisters.
Than to have its own babies. They aren't slaves to the queen. They're savvy genetic investors.
That just blows my mind. It looks like slavery, but it's actually a hedge fund strategy.
In a way, yes.
But wait, this only works for family. This is all kin selection. Vampire bats share blood with non-relatives. You know, I share food with my friends. We aren't related. So Hamilton's rule fails there.
It doesn't fail. It doesn't apply. For non-relatives, we need a different mechanism. And this is where Robert Trevers comes in 1971, with the idea of reciprocal altruism.
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
It sounds simple, but biologically it's incredibly difficult to pull off.
Yeah.
Because of the element of time.
The delay.
The delay, exactly.
Hmm.
If I pick a parasite off your back and you immediately pick one off mine, that's just a trade. It's commerce.
Mm-hmm.
But usually I do a favor for you now.
And I need you to remember that and pay me back later.
Yes, in the future, when I need it.
Which, of course, opens the door for the cheater, the guy who takes the free lunch and then just disappears when the bill comes.
The freeloader, exactly. So for reciprocal altruism to evolve as a stable strategy, you need 3 things.
Okay.
First, you need a species that lives a long time and stays in the same group, so you actually have a chance to meet again. Second, you need the brain power to recognize individuals. Well, that's Steve. I remember Steve.
And third.
And third, and this is the most important part, you need the ability to hold a grudge.
You have to punish the cheater.
You have to cut them off. The vampire bats do this. Researchers found that bats are far more likely to regurgitate blood for a bat that has fed them in the past. If a bat consistently takes, but never gives,
It gets blacklisted?
the network remembers. That bat gets ostracized. And in their world, that means it starves.
So morality here is really just a kind of a biological accounting system. It's keeping tabs.
In a sense, yeah. We see it in cleaner fish on coral reefs, which is another amazing example.
Oh, I read about this.
You have these tiny little fish that swim right inside the mouths of huge predators groupers, barracudas, to eat parasites off their gills.
And the big fish could easily just chomp, close its mouth and get a free snack. It's the perfect crime.
But they don't.
Why not?
Because if they eat that cleaner fish, they never get cleaned again. The parasites build up, the big fish gets sick and dies. The long-term value of the cleaning service outweighs the short-term value of the snack.
It's amazing how much of our good behavior seems to be just long-term selfishness in disguise.
It often is at a genetic level.
But before we leave the biology, I want to touch on this one debate that seemed to get really, really heated in the sources. The group selection debate.
Ah, yes. The E.O. Wilson versus Richard Dawkins battle royale.
Yeah. So Wilson's argument is basically selfish individuals beat altruistic individuals within a group, but groups of altruists beat groups of selfish individuals, which feels true.
It feels intuitively correct.
A football team that plays together beats a team of ball hogs every time.
Right. If you have a tribe of early humans who are willing to die for each other, and you have a tribe of cowards who all run away, our tribe is going to win the war. We'll take your land, and our altruistic genes will spread.
But Dawkins hated this idea.
He called it subversion from within. Here's the problem he pointed out. Imagine our perfect altruistic tribe. We're all sharing food. We're all fighting off the lions together. It's a utopia.
Okay.
Now imagine one mutant is born who is selfish. He eats the communal food. But when the lions come, he hides in the back of the cave.
So he gets all the benefits with none of the costs.
Exactly. He has high calories and low risk. He is going to be the healthiest, strongest guy in the village. He'll attract the most mates. He will have the most children.
And his children will likely carry that same selfish gene.
And within a few generations, the altruistic tribe becomes the selfish tribe. The cooperators get bred out of the population. The rot comes from the inside.
So that's the counter-argument. Where has the science landed on this?
Well, the modern synthesis is largely something called multi-level selection, which is a bit of a compromise.
It's not one or the other.
It basically admits that both are happening at once. There's a constant tug of war. The group is pushing us to be selfless for the good of the tribe, but our individual genes are pushing us to be selfish for our own good.
And that tug of war isn't just happening out there in the abstract. It is physically happening inside our own skulls.
It is, which is a perfect pivot to the neuroscience. This is where we see the actual hardware for all of this.
Let's talk about the warm glow.
The warm glow of giving.
This was a study from 2007, Harbaugh, Mayer, and Burgart. It was just brilliant. They put people in an fMRI machine, a brain scanner.
And they gave them $100 of real money.
And they created this scenario involving a local food bank. They observed the brain's reaction to two different events. Event A was a mandatory tax. The computer just says, we are taking $15 from your account and giving it to the food bank.
You have no choice in the matter.
And the brain's reward centers, they still lit up.
They did. The ventral striatum and the nucleus accumbens. These are the ancient, deep parts of the brain that release dopamine when you eat sugar, have sex, or win a bet. The pleasure centers.
So even though it was a tax, which everyone claims to hate, the brain liked seeing the money go to a good cause.
Yes, that's what you could call pure altruism. Your brain is happy just knowing the good outcome happened.
But then they looked at event B, voluntary giving. The computer asks, do you want to give $15?
And you get to choose.
And when people said yes,
The reward centers exploded. Much, much higher activity than for the mandatory transfer.
So we are addicted to the agency. We want the credit. We want to feel like we did the good thing.
We are biologically wired to enjoy the act of giving. Evolution has essentially bribed us. It says, look, if you help the tribe, I will give you a little hit of nature's homemade heroin, a squirt of dopamine.
That does make me question if true altruism even exists. If I feel good doing it, am I not just doing it for the dopamine hit? Am I being selfish?
That's a deep philosophical rabbit hole.
Oh.
But from a practical standpoint, does it really matter why you did it? If the hungry get fed because you wanted a dopamine hit, they're still fed.
That's a fair point. The outcome is the same, but there is a dark side to this brain wiring that we have to talk about. We have to talk about oxytocin.
Ah, yes, the so-called cuddle hormone.
Everybody loves oxytocin. It's what bonds a mother to her newborn baby. It's released during hugs, during sex. They call it the love drug.
That's the PR version, yes. But actual research paints a much more complicated and, frankly, a much darker picture. There were some fascinating experiments by a researcher named Karsten Dedreau. He showed that while oxytocin does increase trust and cooperation with your in-group, people you see as us,
It does the opposite for the out-group.
it actually increases aggression, suspicion, and defensiveness toward the out-group, people you see as them.
So it's not the love molecule. It's the us versus them molecule.
Precisely.
Huh.
It creates a parochial altruism,
Right.
tribal altruism. It's the hormone that makes you say, I will die for my country, but I will kill for my country too. It primes us to help people who look and sound like us and to fear people who don't.
Which makes perfect sense in a tribal setting 50,000 years ago. But in a global, interconnected society, that is a really dangerous glitch in the system.
It's a huge problem. And that is why culture and philosophy had to step in
Yeah.
to try and write new software to override that ancient biological hardware.
We read about the concept of Ubuntu in the sources.
A beautiful and profound concept from Southern Africa. Archbishop Desmond Tutu spoke about this often. The translation is roughly, I am because we are.
It's a totally different operating system for the self. In the West, we have Descartes. I think, therefore I am. It's all solitary. It happens inside my own head.
Ubuntu says that is an illusion. It's impossible. You cannot be a human being in isolation. Your humanity is caught up, it's bound up inextricably with mine.
So if I dehumanize you, I'm actually dehumanizing myself in the process.
You are diminishing your own humanity. It's almost like a sociological version of that gene's eye view we talked about. We are all just cells in a larger social organism.
And we see these ideas codified in religion, too, like zakat in Islam.
Yes, it's one of the 5 pillars. It's not charity in the Western sense of, oh, that would be a nice thing to do if you feel like it. It is an obligation.
A duty.
A duty. The word itself means purification.
Which implies that your wealth is somehow dirty or impure if you don't share it.
Exactly. Or you have Dana in Buddhism and Hinduism. The focus there isn't just on helping the recipient, but on curing the giver of the disease of attachment. Giving away your stuff literally breaks the hold that material things have on your mind.
So we've got the genes pushing for kin, we've got the brain pushing for the warm glow from our tribe, and we have these large-scale cultural and religious systems pushing for a sense of duty.
Which brings us to the modern day and the rise of a movement that looked at all of this, the warm glow, the tribalism, the religious duty, and said, this is all too messy, it's too emotional, we need to do better.
Enter effective altruism, EA.
This is a radical, radical shift in thinking. If traditional charity is all about following your heart, EA is about following the data.
And it really kicks off with the philosopher Peter Singer and the thought experiment about the drowning child.
It's probably the most famous thought experiment in all of modern ethics. It's incredibly powerful.
So lay it out for us.
Singer asks you to imagine you are walking to work. You're wearing a brand new suit and some very expensive shoes. You pass a shallow pond, and you see a small toddler face down in the water drowning.
There's no one else around.
No one else. If you go in, you will definitely save the child. But you will ruin your expensive shoes and your suit, and you'll be late for work.
So what do?
Do you save the child?
Of course. I mean, you'd have to be a psychopath to say no.
Singer agrees. Everyone agrees. But then he snaps the trap shut. He says, okay. Right now, as we speak, there is a child dying of malaria in a village in Africa. You could save that child's life by donating the cost of your shoes to the Against Malaria Foundation.
You wouldn't even have to get your feet wet. You just have to go online and swipe a credit card.
And his point is, if you would save the nearby child, you are morally obligated to save the distant child.
And if you don't, are you a murderer? It feels like that's the implication.
He argues that distance is not a moral excuse. Just because the child is far away doesn't mean their life is worth less than the child in the pond.
This is the absolute core of EA, isn't it? Impartiality.
Yes, the radical idea that every life, every unit of well-being counts equally. My daughter's life is not objectively more valuable than the life of a child in Bangladesh.
Which is, I mean, it's logically true, but emotionally. Man, that is a hard pill to swallow. My brain, my oxytocin is screaming, my daughter comes first.
It is. Of course it is. EA asks us to override that hardware with new software, with reason. And once you accept that premise, that we should do the most good we can impartially, you immediately run into the problem of scarcity.
You have limited money and time. You can't solve everything. So how do you choose?
This is where they develop their frameworks. The most famous one is the ITN framework.
Importance, tractability, neglectedness.
Exactly.
So, importance, that's pretty straightforward. It's this big problem.
Scale. Does this problem affect 1 million people or does it affect 10 people? All else being equal, go for the 1 million.
Okay. Then tractability. Can we actually fix it? Is there a solution?
Or is it a bottomless pit where money just disappears? Is there a proven intervention?
And finally, neglectedness. This one was really interesting to me. Is anyone else already working on it?
This is the diminishing returns point. If a cause like, say, cancer research is already funded by billions and billions of dollars from governments and huge foundations, your $50 donation isn't going to move the needle very much.
But if you find a cause that's huge and solvable, but for whatever reason, no one is paying attention to it.
That's the sweet spot. That's where your dollar has the most leverage. EA looks for the low-hanging fruit on a global scale, And when you run the numbers, the differences in cost effectiveness are just staggering.
We saw that comparison in the Disease Control Priorities Report. That was eye-opening.
This is crucial to understand. In the U.S., we might spend, say, $50,000 to train a guide dog for a blind person. And that's a wonderful, compassionate thing to do.
Right. It helps one person immensely.
It does. But in the developing world, you can surgically cure a person of trachoma, a horrible disease that causes blindness, for something like $100.
So for the cost of one guide dog?
You could prevent blindness in 500 people.
That is a deeply uncomfortable calculation. It feels cold and inhuman to trade one guide dog for 500 people's eyesight.
It feels cold. But the EA argument is that not doing the math is the truly immoral act. If you choose the guide dog, you are implicitly choosing to let 500 people go blind. The choice is unavoidable.
And this kind of thinking leads directly to the bed nets thing.
The Against Malaria Foundation. This is the canonical example of an effective charity.
So what are we talking about here?
Long-lasting insecticide-treated bed nets. They cost about $2 to $5 to manufacture and distribute. The data shows, rigorously through randomized controlled trials, that this is one of the cheapest ways to save a human life on planet Earth.
And the cost per life saved is something like a few $1,000s.
It varies, but it's in that ballpark. The point is, if you have $3,000 or $4,000, you can, with a high degree of certainty, buy an extra human life.
Which brings us to the career advice. Because EA isn't just about donating 10% of your income. It's about how you spend your whole life. We looked at the organization 80,000 hours.
That's the number of hours in a typical career. 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, for 40 years.
It is your biggest asset. It's the biggest thing you have to offer the world. So how do you spend it?
And the 80,000 hours team suggests something that really upset a lot of people in the traditional nonprofit world. The idea of earning to give.
This is the idea that maybe you shouldn't go work for a charity.
Right. Let's say you're a brilliant math whiz. You could go work for a charity and maybe you increase their fundraising efficiency by 10%. That's good. You're replacing the next best candidate who would have gotten that job.
Okay.
But what if you go to Wall Street, become a quantitative trader, and make $10 million a year?
And then you donate half of it, $5 million.
With that $5 million, you could hire 50 people to work at that charity. You become a force multiplier.
But this requires you to go work on Wall Street. You have to participate in the belly of the capitalist beast, so to speak.
Which is a huge ethical sticking point for many. But 80,000 hours also pushes for direct work, especially on what they see as the most pressing problems, things like AI safety or biosecurity.
Things that could literally wipe out all of humanity. This is long-termism.
The idea that future people matter just as much as people alive today. If we cause a global nuclear war or create a rogue superintelligent AI, we aren't just killing the 8 billion people alive now.
We are preventing the trillions upon trillions of future humans from ever being born.
So from a long-termist perspective, preventing extinction is the highest possible moral priority. The stakes are astronomical.
I have to say, I did like some of the practical advice they gave, though. The concept of Plan Z.
Yes, this is great advice for anyone, really. If you want to take a big risk in your career like trying to solve AI safety, you need a solid safety net. Plan A is your dream job. Plan B is your pivot if that doesn't work out.
And Plan Z is...
Plan Z is the absolute worst case scenario. It's, I can sleep on my parents' couch and eat ramen noodles for 6 months and I won't die or be homeless.
If you have a solid Plan Z, you can afford to be bold with your Plan A.
Exactly. But we have to make a hard pivot here. Because when you start treating human lives like numbers in a giant spreadsheet, and when you start telling yourself that you are one of the few people smart enough to save the future of the galaxy,
Things can get weird.
things can get very weird, and sometimes they get incredibly dark.
We have to talk about pathological altruism.
This is the work of Barbara Oakley, and it is a crucial corrective. The definition she uses hit me like a ton of bricks. It's altruism in which the motivation is primarily to help, but the result is irrational and substantial negative consequences.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Literally.
The example that really stuck with me from the source material was the Scared Straight programs. I remember these from TV shows when I was a kid.
They were very popular.
You take at-risk kids, delinquent teenagers, and you bring them into a maximum security prison. And they get yelled at by inmates. They see the cells, they see the violence. The idea is to scare them so badly they never commit a crime again.
It makes total common sense. It feels right. It feels like a good, tough love intervention that should work.
But when researchers actually ran the randomized controlled trials, they tracked the kids who went through the program against a control group of similar kids who didn't go. What did they find?
The kids who went to Scared Straight committed more crimes.
More. Not the same, but more.
Significantly more. The program was actively harmful. It was making things worse.
Why? What was the mechanism?
Well, there are a few theories.
All right.
One is the peer contagion effect. You take all the so-called bad kids from different schools, and you put them on a bus together and in a waiting room for 3 hours.
So they network.
They bond. They exchange tips. They start to think, wow, I'm tough enough to handle prison. These guys respect me. It glamorizes the criminal identity instead of scaring them away from it.
So the intervention essentially acted as a networking event for future criminals?
It seems so. But for decades, politicians and well-meaning community groups funded these programs because it sounded good. It felt like they were helping. That is a perfect example of pathological altruism, helping without looking at the data.
But EA is supposed to be the cure for that.
Yeah.
EA is all about the data. So how did the movement that was designed to prevent this exact problem end up giving us one of the biggest financial frauds in recent history?
We have to talk about Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF.
It is the elephant in the room for this entire topic.
It is. SBF was the poster child for effective altruism. He was on the cover of Forbes and Fortune. He was the ultimate earn-to-give success story. He built FTX, this massive crypto exchange, for the explicit purpose of making billions of dollars to give away to effective causes.
He was preaching the gospel. He said he wanted to maximize his expected value for the good of the universe. He was funding pandemic preparedness, AI safety, animal welfare, all the top EA causes.
He was the movement's biggest donor, by far.
And then, in November 2022, the whole thing just collapsed. It turned out he was stealing customer funds to make incredibly risky bets with his other company. Billions and billions of dollars just gone.
The question everyone is asking is, did the philosophy make him do it? Is EA to blame?
That's what I want to know. Is there something inherent in utilitarianism, in this cold calculation, that allows for this kind of behavior?
There is a trap. It's a trap called naive utilitarianism. If you truly, truly believe that the ends justify the means, you can talk yourself into doing almost anything.
So walk me through that logic from his perspective. How could he have justified this to himself?
Okay, so imagine you believe, with almost religious certainty, that the money you accumulate is going to save the world. You think, if I take this $10 billion from my customers and I can turn it into $100 billion, I can prevent the next pandemic and save 50 million lives.
And if I get caught, okay, I go to jail. A few people lose their money. But if I succeed, 50 million people live. The math says, take the money.
That is the bullet-biting logic of a naive calculation.
Yeah.
But it's deeply flawed because you can never be 100% certain of the outcome. SBF gambled on a low probability of a huge payoff, and he lost everything.
And in doing so, he destroyed the reputation of the very movement he claimed he was trying to help.
He destroyed the trust capital, which is arguably more valuable than the financial capital. William McCaskill, who is one of the founders of EA, wrote this furious rebuttal after the whole thing collapsed.
What did he say?
He said essentially that you cannot hack morality. There are common sense side constraints. You cannot lie, cheat, and steal, even if you think it's for the greater good. Because the long-term damage to society, the erosion of trust in institutions and promises, is almost always worse than whatever short-term gain you are hoping for.
You can't build a utopia on a foundation of fraud.
Precisely. The ends do not justify those means.
So, okay. Individual charity is prone to warm glow bias. High-level earn-to-give philanthropy at its extreme is prone to this incredible hubris and risk. Maybe the solution isn't about individuals at all.
Maybe the system itself is the problem.
Maybe we need to automate the altruism, to build it into the code of our society.
This brings us to the final part of our deep dive, the systemic solution, universal basic income.
UBI. The idea is, on its face, very simple. The government cuts a check to every single citizen every single month. $1,000, $2,000, whatever the amount is.
No strings attached. You don't have to be looking for work. You don't have to be drug-free. You don't have to prove you're deserving. You just have to be alive.
It creates a floor, a line beneath which no human being is allowed to fall.
It's society making a statement that survival is a right, not a privilege.
Now, I have to play the skeptic here for a minute. I can hear my uncle at Thanksgiving dinner saying, if you just give people free money, they are going to sit on a couch, watch TV, and drink beer all day.
The lazy myth. It is by far the most common objection. But we have data on this. We have so much data.
So let's look at the Mincome experiment. This was in Canada, right?
Yes. Dauphin, Manitoba in the 1970s. They essentially ran a UBI pilot program for the entire town for several years, and they tracked exactly what happened to the labor market.
Did everyone quit their jobs and become lazy?
No. Primary earners, mostly men with full-time jobs, reduced their working hours by about 1%, which is basically nothing, statistically insignificant.
So the dads kept working.
The dads kept working, so who did reduce their hours? Two groups. New mothers. They used the money to take longer maternity leave and stay home with their infants.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
And the second group was teenage boys. They stopped dropping out of high school to get jobs to support their families. High school graduation rates went way up.
And things like hospitalization rates went down.
Down by over 8%. Mental health improved. Domestic violence went down.
So people didn't stop working to be lazy. They stopped working to do other valuable things like care work or education.
Correct. And on the beer and tobacco argument, the World Bank has reviewed dozens and dozens of these cash transfer studies from all over the world. The evidence is overwhelming. Poor people do not spend the money on temptation goods.
In fact, it's often the opposite, isn't it?
Often, yes. When you alleviate the constant, grinding stress of poverty, alcohol and tobacco consumption frequently go down, people are no longer self-medicating the misery of being broke.
But there is another argument for UBI that I found really compelling. It's the efficiency argument, the problem of the welfare trap.
This is a huge, huge issue with our current systems. Right now, most welfare is means-tested, which means if you earn too much money, you lose your benefits. They get cut off.
So let's say I'm getting $1,000 a month in benefits, and I get offered a part-time job that pays $1,200 a month.
Seems great.
But if I take that job, I lose the $1,000 in benefits. Plus, now I have to pay for childcare and transportation to get to the job. I might actually end up poorer by taking the job.
That is a welfare cliff, and it creates a massive disincentive to work. UBI erases the cliff entirely because you get the $1,000 no matter what.
Yeah.
So if you take that $1,200 job, you now have $2,200. Work always pays.
Okay, but who pays for it? That is the trillion-dollar question. If you just print the money, you get massive inflation.
That is the main risk, yes. But most serious proponents argue that it shouldn't be new money creation. It should be a massive wealth transfer. You tax the wealthiest individuals and the most profitable corporations, particularly things like carbon or financial transactions, and you redistribute that wealth to everyone.
Which brings up the leverage point, the dirty work question.
This is the most fascinating economic ripple effect, I think. If everyone has a basic income to survive on, you can no longer force people to do terrible, dangerous, or degrading jobs for starvation wages.
If I know I have $1,000 a month coming in to cover my rent and food, I'm not going to go clean sewers for $7 an hour.
Exactly. You finally have the power to say no. So if society decides that it still wants its sewers cleaned,
we have to pay the sewer cleaner what the job is actually worth, $30 an hour, $40 an hour.
we have to make the wage match the difficulty and unpleasantness of the job. It completely shifts the balance of power from capital back to labor.
It really redefines the concept of human worth. Currently, our society basically says you are worth what the market will pay you. If the market says you're worth zero, you starve.
UBI says, no, you have inherent worth simply because you exist.
It's the ultimate scaling up of the vampire bat. The whole society agrees to, in effect, regurgitate a little bit of its wealth to make absolutely sure that no one starves to death.
It creates a civilizational floor.
So we have been on a hell of a journey today. We started with genes playing this game of 4D chess to save their cousins from fires.
We saw how the brain bribes us with dopamine to be nice to our friends.
We watched Peter Singer try to ruin our expensive shoes, and we saw the EA movement try to turn kindness into a giant spreadsheet.
And we sifted through the wreckage of Sam Bankman-Fried's incredible hubris.
And we ended with this radical idea of automating altruism through universal basic income. It really feels like there is this constant tension throughout the entire story, a tension between the heart and the head.
That is the fundamental tension of this whole topic. The heart gives you the warm glow. It's what makes you jump in the pond to save the drowning child. It makes you care. It provides the motivation.
But the heart is biased.
The heart is bad at math. It's biased towards the near and the familiar. It only cares about the identifiable victim that's right in front of it.
And the head.
The head gives you the strategy. It gives you the bed nets and the UBI policy. It allows you to be impartial and maximize the good you do in the world. But the head can be cold. And if you detach it too much from the heart,
You end up with SBF. You end up rationalizing fraud for the greater good.
you lose the plot. So you need both.
You need an altruistic portfolio. I love that term from the readings. Can you break down what that looks like in practice?
It just means don't put all your altruistic eggs in one basket. Do some warm glow giving. Donate to the local animal shelter. Buy your friend dinner when they're having a bad week. Volunteer in your community. Feed your oxytocin. That keeps you human. It keeps you connected.
But don't stop there.
No. Take another portion of your resources. Maybe it's 10% of your charity budget. Maybe it's more. And give that portion with your head. Give it effectively. Give it to the charities that the data says save the most lives for the cheapest cost. Be cold and calculating with that slice of the pie.
Feed the neighbor, but also save the stranger.
Exactly. Balance the portfolio.
I want to leave everyone with one final thought. We touched on long-termism a little bit earlier, and there was a question posed in the source material that has been really haunting me since I read it.
A moral circle.
Yeah. The idea that we look back at our ancestors, people from 200, 500 years ago, and we judge them. We say, how could they have owned slaves? How could they deny women the right to vote? How could they be so cruel to people outside their tribe?
We see their moral blind spots so clearly in hindsight.
So the deeply uncomfortable question is, what are our blind spots? Who are we currently excluding from our moral circle that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will look back and judge us for?
Is it the factory-farmed animals? We kill 80 billion land animals a year in conditions that are just unimaginable. Will the future look back at that as a planetary-scale holocaust?
Is it the global poor? We let thousands of children die every single day of easily preventable diseases while we spend our money on $5 coffees and fast fashion.
Or is it the future itself? Is it future generations? Are we burning through the planet's resources and leaving nothing but a husk for the people who will live in the year 2200?
It's a heavy thought, but I think that's the real job of this kind of deep dive, to keep pushing on the edges of that circle.
The circle has been getting bigger for millions of years. From kin to tribe to nation, let's keep pushing it outwards.
Thanks for listening. Go check your portfolio. We'll see you next time.